It was our 5th wedding anniversary, and I had been looking forward to it for months. I believed we would celebrate the bond we had built together, so I organized an intimate evening at a private home, just for Sophia and me. Every detail had been carefully thought out. This was supposed to be a unique moment to honor everything we shared. But then, my brother Eric revealed that he was hosting a barbecue on the same day. At first, I thought it was just a small misunderstanding, something that could easily be resolved. I even tried to laugh it off, hoping everything would work out. However, without hesitation, Sophia made her choice. She casually told me she was going to Eric's barbecue instead of attending our anniversary dinner. When I confronted her, she scoffed and said, "Come on, Adam. It's just a celebration. We can celebrate our anniversary anytime." Her words stung deeper than I expected. In that moment, I realized it was more than just a party. It was a statement. It became clear to me exactly where I stood in our marriage. I was hurt, but there was no middle ground. I couldn't allow this disruption to ruin what I had planned. I decided that nobody, not even my wife, would be allowed to show up late or derail the evening. As the evening progressed, I made sure everything was exactly as I had envisioned. The location was serene and beautiful, and I had invited only those who truly valued our marriage. Close family and friends who had supported us throughout the years. I even spoke to the security chief and made it clear, no one, including Sophia, would be allowed in late. He gave me a surprised look and asked if I was sure. I nodded firmly. This night was important, and I wasn't going to let anything or anyone interfere. The night was filled with good music, laughter, and meaningful conversations. When my best friend Jason found out about Sophia's decision, he shook his head in disbelief. "I can't believe she chose a barbecue over your anniversary," he murmured. I forced a smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. Deep down, I knew Sophia had made a huge mistake, one that would reveal her true priorities. Later that night, as I sat surrounded by friends who genuinely cared, I knew Sophia and Eric were probably having a great time at the cookout, oblivious to what had unfolded. The doors were locked, the rules were set, and she would have to deal with the consequences of her choice. I felt a strange mixture of serenity and determination. If she truly cared about our marriage, she would have been there on time. Her absence had made it clear where her priorities lay, and I let the night unfold as planned. Every detail, every elegant touch became a silent statement. My heart ached from her negligence, but I felt in control. This night was my declaration. I had spent months preparing this celebration, choosing the perfect venue, selecting the right guest list, and making sure everything was just so. I had spoken privately with the security team again. No late arrivals. Even my wife, I emphasized. The security chief looked at me with concern, but I was resolute. "If someone chooses a cookout over our marriage, they don't belong here," I said calmly. It wasn't about cruelty, it was about respect. This was a night to celebrate our union, and I wasn't going to let it be insulted. As the night continued, I watched the door, my heart skipping a beat each time, only to sink again when I realized she wasn't coming. The laughter and conversations of my guests filled the air, and Jason sat beside me, shaking his head. "I can't believe she chose a barbecue," he whispered. I tried to smile, but the weight of her absence was too heavy. The table was beautifully set, with crisp white linens and carefully selected dishes that reminded me of our happiest moments together. I moved from table to table, greeting each guest, feeling both proud and heartbroken. I had created something beautiful, but someone was missing. I knew exactly where she was, at Eric's cookout, completely unaware of what I had done. Inside, the venue was filled with warmth, music, and support. People who believed in their marriages, who honored their commitments. Yet Sophia wasn't one of them. I glanced at the clock. I knew she wasn't coming. This celebration was supposed to be about us, a genuine connection, a moment to reflect on our love. Instead, it had become a silent testament to what I already knew deep inside. I had set the rules, made my decision, and now the night was proving me right. As the evening wound down, guests began to leave, offering kind words and admiration for how I had handled the situation. Jason clapped a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "You did the right thing." "I'm sorry it had to be this way," he said, his voice steady. "But you showed them all tonight. Sometimes the truth reveals itself like this." His words brought comfort because I understood the weight of the moment. This night was a turning point, one I knew would shape the future. As the last guest left and the lights dimmed, I stood alone in the silent venue, surrounded by everything I had worked to build, but without the one person who was supposed to stand beside me. And in that silence, I understood. Some truths don't need to be spoken, they simply reveal themselves. She begged the guard, her voice growing more desperate. "Adam, please allow me in." I could see the desperation in her frustration escalating with each passing second. Inside the room, the soft hum of music and the chatter of guests continued, but something had shifted. The faces that had once beamed with joy now reflected a growing awareness of what was happening outside. A few exchanged glances, some filled with pity, others with silent understanding. It was clear now, the decision had been made long ago. I watched through the window as Sophia argued with the security guard. Her tone shifted between pleading and rage. "This is my husband's celebration. I should be there," she demanded. But the guard remained firm, his response unwavering. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but rules are rules. I can't let you in." It was as if an invisible barrier stood between her and the event I had carefully orchestrated. The wall I had built, the rule I had set, wouldn't collapse under her pleas. This moment, and the decision behind it, had been mine to make. And deep inside, I felt a chilling certainty. My decision had been made long ago. I had established that rule because I wanted tonight to be a celebration. A true celebration, meant to honor the love and commitment that our marriage was supposed to represent. But as the minutes ticked by, I realized that the reality of her absence was now more than just a consequence of my decision. It was a final statement, one she had to live with. She had chosen a barbecue over our anniversary. Now, she had to accept the cost. From inside, I could hear her muffled voice rising in anger, pleading for a chance to enter. But the guard was unyielding, his presence firm and resolute, a reminder that the rules were in place for a reason. I felt the pain of watching her, but also a strange sense of relief. This was the price for her choices. She would have to live with it. Outside, I watched as her frustration slowly turned into fear, then acceptance. Her eyes, once fiery with anger, were now filled with something deeper, regret. I kept my gaze fixed on the door, letting the silence in the room speak louder than any words could. I did not intervene. I had already made my decision. She had broken the commitment. Now, she would have to face the consequences. As the evening continued, I stood by the door, watching the outcome of my decision unfold. The conversations carried on in the room, unaware of the tension outside, but I felt the weight of it with each passing moment. Then a loud noise from outside pulled my attention away. For a brief moment, I thought perhaps a late guest had arrived or some minor disruption had occurred. But when I looked, my heart sank. Sophia stood in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes empty, lost in pain. She didn't move for a long time, as if she couldn't understand why the door remained closed to her. I turned back to my guests, focusing on my speech. I spoke of commitment, trust, and the values that make a marriage strong. But as I did, I couldn't ignore the painful reality outside. Sophia's tears filled her eyes as she stood there, waiting for me to come to her, to undo my decision. But I couldn't. The door remained locked. The guard followed my instructions, standing firm as her pleas echoed in the night. My brother, Eric, staggered toward the door, already deep in his cups. "Come on," he slurred. "It's just one night. Let's go somewhere else, sis-in-law." His words made her feel even smaller, as if our anniversary and the commitment we had made meant nothing at all. But I knew this wasn't just about a single night. It was about everything that had led to this moment. I finished my speech, steadying my voice. I spoke of commitment, of honoring promises. Yet with every word, my heart hardened. As her calls continued, I left them unanswered. No anger, no spite, just an unyielding resolve. The rules were final. And as the realization settled into her heart, perhaps for the first time in our 5 years of marriage, she understood. I was done. Her head drooped. Her eyes, once filled with fire, were now drained of light. The weight of her choices crushed her. I finished my speech, firm and composed, but inside I was already moving forward. Tonight we honor what matters most: commitment, trust, and respect. The room fell silent. Only the soft music filled the air, but in that silence I found clarity. The decision had been made long ago, and its consequences were now undeniable. Her final message came through, and I left it unread. I blocked her number. Not out of anger, but because I had already moved on. The locked door was no longer just a physical barrier. It was a symbol of something much larger. A reminder that when one strays from true commitment, they must face the cost. One last time I looked outside. Sophia stood there, small and alone. And in that moment, I felt a mix of regret and resolution. Everything had changed. This was no longer just a missed anniversary. This was the night our marriage ended. Months later, the memory of that night remained clear, but I had found peace. On my next anniversary, I spent the day alone in a quiet apartment, not in sadness, but in freedom. I celebrated not the end of a marriage, but the beginning of something new. A fresh start. I spent the day with true friends, reading a good book, and taking a long walk in the park. And as I sat in a small cafe, sipping my coffee in the warm morning sun, I realized something simple but profound. Sometimes the best way to cherish what you have is to let go of what hurts you. And so I moved forward. No regrets. Only clarity. Only peace.